Hi, we're talking about Your Money Matters on NDTV Profit, and my name is Alex Matthew. In the run-up to International Women's Day, we're having conversations about how women manage money, yes, both for themselves and for other people. And some of the conversations I think we've already had on this platform have been quite interesting. From the perspective that inclusion of women in the workforce and specifically in certain industries should not be done as an act of charity, but because they add so much value to what they bring to the table. To that end, we're having a conversation today about the top fund managers in the mutual fund industry who are women, what their body of work is, and what their track record is. And joining me to have this conversation is Nisreen Mamaji, who's the founder of Moneyworks. Thanks so much, Nisreen, for taking the time. And in anticipation, let me wish you and everybody who works with you a very happy International Women's Day. Let's talk about how many there are in women in the mutual fund industry and who they are, how they've worked.
Sure. So thank you very much, Alex, for having me on the show, especially for the Women's International Women's Day. Thank you for that. It's very gratifying that we have a lot of top women fund managers in the Indian mutual fund industry. So I'll start with Mansi Sajeja. She works with SBI Asset Management Company, and she manages nearly 1.4 lakh crore, which is the highest among women fund managers today. The key schemes that she manages are SBI Balanced Advantage Fund, SBI Equity Hybrid Fund, Conservative Hybrid Fund, and the Multi-Asset Allocation Fund. So typically, she's an expert in the in the hybrid and the multi-asset space. Now, her style is very asset allocation driven. She's very good at balancing risk management, and she can take tactical shifts between equity and debt very efficiently. That's the reason that she basically manages these multi-asset and hybrid asset allocation funds. And she's known for a very strong risk-adjusted return in hybrid funds, as well as focus on stable compounding and protecting the downside. So that's what Mansi is very well known for.
I do want to ask you about some of those aspects. So when you look at, for example, the multi-asset fund, which I think a lot of people in the recent past have looked at purely on account of gold doing what it has done. But you should really be looking at multi-asset fund as something that forms the core of your portfolio, purely from that asset allocation standpoint. What stands out about her management of the scheme in the last 12 months, at a time when gold has reached the heady levels that it has, and silver also having done what it has done in terms of the volatility that we've seen in the prices?
So basically, that's, she's been very efficient in managing the asset allocation between equity, debt, gold, and, so that's where her efficiency comes in. And that's where she's proven her track record, that she has been able to move between the different asset classes very efficiently and maximize the returns of each asset class at the right timing. So exactly, that's her efficiency and her track record. And that's one of the reasons that she's managing most of the asset allocation and multi-asset funds with SBI. So, that's, I think, her niche where Mansi is concerned.
Interesting. And these hybrid funds are now finding more takers in the industry as well, not just because of gold and the way that it has moved, but also because of the taxation of fixed income mutual funds and the fact that now it's quite a bit more tax efficient to take that exposure through balanced advantage funds and other hybrid funds. Let's talk about Kinjal Desai, and she's at Nippon India Mutual Fund. What stands out about her?
So she manages nearly, 1.37 lakh crores across 24 schemes. And her key schemes are a Nippon India Small Cap Fund, Nippon India Multi Cap, and Nippon India Large Cap Fund. So she's basically, a mix of the capitalization. She's able to manage a large cap and a small cap fund. In the small cap fund, she's a co-manager, and the large cap fund, she's the primary manager. So her style is, basically very growth oriented in her investing style. She has a strong exposure to the mid and the small caps as well. So that's where when she's managing the multi cap, that's where this kind of knowledge, shines through. And she also focuses on companies which has a very strong earnings momentum. Okay, she's known for her aggressive, growth style of investing, and she participates in strategies that benefit from India's mid-cap cycle. So we have, Kinjal and Mansi who are managing, different areas of funds, and both with their very unique style. So that's where Kinjal, shines through.
Quick
Yeah,
question on the small cap fund, and
right,
you mentioned she is the co-manager.
right.
What elements and Nippon, of course, stands out in the way that it has managed this fund. It is known to have such a long tail purely because
Right.
of the size of the fund that and the money that it manages in this particular scheme. So, what elements from that stock selection in the small cap fund does she take to the multi-cap fund? Because that is where you can have a pretty sizable allocation towards small cap as well.
Right. So basically, with her deep knowledge of small caps, she's applying that to her multi-cap schemes as well. So there will be some duplication between, the stocks which are held in the multi-cap fund and as well as in the small cap fund. And, she's selecting funds, which have a higher earnings momentum. So she's slightly more aggressive and growth oriented, when she's picking up the stocks. So since she is, co-managing the small cap fund, she has a deep knowledge of the small caps as well. And there will be some funds which are also, bought in the multi-cap fund exactly for that reason.
Got
So
it.
the multi-cap fund will have, equal exposure to all the caps, and the balance 25 is at the fund manager's discretion. So it will be her discretion where to put the balance 25%, either in large, either in mid, or in small. But since she has, a deep knowledge of all the three capitalizations, I think she manages the multi-cap fund also very efficiently to
Okay.
that extent. Yeah,
Okay, let's talk about Krishna N, who is at
sure.
Axis Mutual Fund. And here
Right.
too, she's managing a small cap fund as well as a blue chip fund, which is the large cap fund, right?
Right, right. So she's managing the small cap fund, which she co-manages. She's part of the team for the blue chip fund, which is a large cap fund. And she's also managing the Access Focus 25 fund. So, but her style is basically quality oriented. So she follows a quality and a growth approach, both of that. She has a very high emphasis on corporate governance. And, obviously she's selecting concentrated portfolios because she's primarily managing the Focus 25 fund. So she's very good in managing funds where the number of stocks is limited. And her track record is basically she's known for her quality, biased portfolios, which have historically done very well in bull markets. So that's where her particular niche, Ashwini's niche, comes through.
This is Krishna's niche.
I'm sorry, Krishna's niche.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ashwini, in
Krishna's niche.
fact, Ashwini is the next one. In fact, she is
Right,
Ashwini Shindai at ICICI Prudential. And
right.
the number of schemes, I'm going to have to go and check this because it's 47 funds. How is that even possible, Nisreen?
So, she's part of the team that is managing the rest of the funds, which is primarily known for the equity savings fund and the balanced advantage fund, where she's in the team. So that's where it would probably, she's part of the entire fund management team, which is, the 47 funds, obviously. And she's known for the equity savings and the BAF. So where Ashwini is concerned, again, similar to, Mansi, she's well known for her hybrid asset allocation funds. So I think that's where she's shining through. And she's very good in her quantitative and in her derivative strategies. And she's got very strong experience and expertise both in the arbitrage and in the hybrid strategies. So this is her core knowledge space.
Very
And she's
interesting.
very well known for risk managed, portfolio construction, because in most of the asset allocation schemes or the dynamic asset allocation schemes like equity savings, like BAF, where there's a high component of arbitrage and derivatives, this kind of, risk management portfolio construction is the, in the basic idea of the fund manager is to have very deep knowledge about the how to manage the portfolios and manage the risk by having deep knowledge of also derivative strategies. So Ashwini, I think, is very good in that part of the management of the funds. And that is why iPro Equity Savings and BAF both are very, very well regarded in the industry and have always followed, been in quartile one and two as far as both these funds go.
All right, a couple more to talk about. Nisreen, there's Sunena Dakuna, who's at Aditya Birla Sun Life. What are the schemes that she looks at?
Sure. So Sunena looks at, the Aditya Birla Sun Life Liquid Fund. She looks at the medium-term plan, and she looks at the credit risk fund.
Okay.
So all these three are basically debt funds. So Sunaina, is her style is basically she's a debt portfolio specialist, and she focuses on credit evaluation and duration management both. So that's her specialty, that she's looking after even the duration funds, and she checks the credit risk quality of the funds that she's invested in. So in the liquid fund, basically, the credit risk will be very high. In the medium term plan, also there will be a mix of credit and duration as well. And credit risk will only be obviously the funds which are managed through in the credit space. So there, the evaluation will be very crucial to make sure that the investor would be, exposed to certain credit, but would also match the risk expectation that the investor is seeking.
Yeah.
So Serena is slightly different compared to the other fund managers, where she is a specialist on debt.
Yeah, liquid funds generally would have low credit risk, right?
Absolutely. So liquid funds would have, say, T plus 90, and it follows in the space of very few, maximum 1 to 3 month, paper.
Yeah,
so
this is why it's meant for your emergency funds, etc. Yeah, and your credit risk fund is where you're trying to look at getting a higher yield and all of that. All right, so debt specialist. Akta Gala, and this is the last one on the list, she looks at both equity as well as debt. That's quite interesting.
Absolutely. So, the key schemes that Ekta manages with Mirae is basically the Mirae Asset Emerging Blue Chip Fund, where she's part of the team. And she handles quite a lot of debt and hybrid funds too. So she handles a large number of schemes, nearly 30. And so, her obviously area of expertise is in both debt as well as in equity. And since she's part of the team which manages nearly 30 funds, I would say she's an all-rounder, a fund manager, and who has expertise in both debt and equity. So basically, I think Mansi is a hybrid and asset allocation. That's her key, expertise space. Kinjal is for growth and mid cap. Krishna is quality and growth. Ashwini Shindai is quant and arbitrage. Sunaina is debt portfolio management. So that's where each of them, have a very unique space. But Ekta is definitely an all-rounder because she has knowledge of, various capitalizations as far as equity is concerned. And as far as debt is concerned, she would have knowledge of, duration and credit. And she is part of the team that handles many debt and hybrid funds. So Ekta is definitely the all-rounder, and has knowledge of various, sectors and various funds.
Just to round things off, and a relatively quick answer here, not necessary that we're suggesting, and we're certainly not saying that you should go and invest in any of these schemes purely because they are run by a woman fund manager. But looking at their track records, and you obviously look at various other metrics, out of all of these individuals that we've spoken about today, who stands out and who do you usually recommend that investors look at very closely when they're looking at adding to their portfolio?
See, I look at the iPro funds, I think, because a lot of investors today are looking at equity savings as well as the balance advantage category. So from that space, I think Mansi also manages, with SBI, the hybrid funds. So those are the ones that come to my mind immediately because of the, times that we live in, and people are looking for a lot of, downside protection besides chasing returns. So Ashwini and Mansi would be the, fund managers of choice right now. A lot of people are scared, and therefore we are recommending a lot of, hybrid asset allocation funds and multi-asset funds, for the longer term as well, and not just to chase returns. So I would say Mansi and Ashwini, yes.
All right, it's been an engaging conversation. Nisreen, thanks so much for taking the time. Pleasure speaking with you as always.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me.